Welcome to the Reticle Up podcast, where I, Three-Gun Kenzie, will be interviewing competitive shooters, hunters, fishermen, archers, entrepreneurs, and outdoorsmen. Come learn with me as I interview people from all walks of life, in different disciplines, all across the world, from novices to professionals of all ages. No matter what, everyone has something they can teach you, so come join me on the journey. The Reticle Up podcast is produced in partnership with AmericanFirearms.org. American Firearms' mission is to recommend what works. We believe everyone deserves access to unbiased, helpful information about firearms, and our buying guides, product reviews, and learning resources are designed to help real people find the stuff that will work best for them. Check us out at www.americanfirearms.org. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reticle Up podcast. So I'm here with Charlie Perez. He's a practical shooting enthusiast, a firearms instructor, and we'll be talking about his book. So he's official author. So Charlie, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to enjoy this conversation.
I was going to have some fun. We're going to have some laughs because I have some fun questions.
Good.
I can't wait. So kicking this off, for people that don't know you, do you want to give a little bit of background about you diving into the shooting sports and how you kind of found it?
So I started USPSA or practical shooting in 2008, and I kind of found out about practical shooting by accident, just by attending a class that one of my friends was hosting, and I didn't know like you could draw from a holster or run around and reload on the move and that kind of stuff. And so once I had a taste of that, I went and found my local matches, and luckily for me in Colorado, the practical shooting sports is highly attended. Like, we have tons of matches all over the place, all across the Colorado Front Range. And like from a USPSA perspective, we have 13 different USPSA clubs.
Wow.
So and that's just along the Front Range. So it's like every weekend day you could go, shoot a match if you wanted. So you have to be kind of judicious in where you spend your ammunition.
Right. And then, I mean, I know we don't want to talk about too much about like GM stuff, but like when you have a ton of GMs in the area too, that makes everybody better.
Yeah, and I think that the cool thing that a lot of people don't realize that, like, I do a lot of traveling with both training and shooting and that kind of stuff. And I think that a lot of the Colorado shooters that don't normally travel outside the state, they don't realize how each of the clubs kind of compete with each other to make their matches better.
Yeah.
Right. So the quality of the stages, the quality of officiating is like, I would pretty much put almost any of my local USPSA clubs matches up against any level 2 match that people would go to. So we get really high quality stages and fun stuff, and stuff run really well.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome.
Can you believe, obviously, about that? They let me run around with live firearms as much as I get hurt.
Well, that's the whole fun about it. It's all about equal opportunity, and everybody wants to pew, they can pew.
Right. That's awesome. So, okay, I know you're generally an iron sight shooter, right?
Yep. So I predominantly shot iron sights through my practical shooting adventure. And actually, like right after I finished the 2022 Limited Open Nationals, I decided I'm going to switch 100% over to open.
No way.
I'm going full-time open. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, I'm excited because I was going to ask you, why are you a sadist here with your iron sight?
But like, honestly, like I always felt like there was always something more to learn around like shot calling with iron sights. And as I got older and older, my eyes would always get worse and worse. So I'd have to like relearn how to, call my shots and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's always like this enigma. Like I always felt like I'm never done with it. I'm never done, but I finally reached a point where my focal speed is just slow enough now that being able to quickly focus between a target focus and a sight focus is so slow that it's just not a competitive scenario.
Yeah.
And I ended up just blasting at stuff instead of seeing valid sight pictures.
That's fun too, though.
Heck yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned that because I'm actually doing a little bit of reviewing of iron sight guns like literally last week, and I've been shooting dots. I've been shooting PGCs, open, carry optics, whatever. And what's weird is like for iron sights, I don't know, I was always still sight focused. And now that I've moved back from the dot going to that, I'm like, why am I target focused and still hitting it and seeing the sight lift? And I'm like, holy cow, that helped going backwards.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Why is that? I don't know.
Well, I think that for a lot of people, it's hard to get not get distracted by all the stuff that's going on within an iron sight picture. And the better that we get in our gun handling and index, the more we can kind of rely on that stuff to ensure that the sights are aligned in front of your face. And, I want to look at this target and put the gun on the target. The sights are usually pretty well aligned.
Yeah.
So it's really not about a factor of sight alignment issue. It's more of picking places on the target to actually aim at.
Yeah. Okay. I want to talk about that at some point because that's something there. But I think the optics, I don't know if this is true or not. I think optics was better trainer for the feedback versus iron sights because people don't know how to self-diagnose as much with seeing the front sight left, right, up, down, whatever. With the dot, you're like, oh, I saw that wiggle, right?
Yeah. So that's the one thing that for most people, it's easy for that to teach them how to shoot because you're only working with like a single plane of a sighting system, right? And the dot is always omnipresent. It's like hard to not see it because it's always there and it's always giving you feedback. So like, especially when I'm doing training with people that want to learn how's my movement affecting my hit quality? You put a dot gun in their hand and they know right away what's happening because that dot is always on and it's showing them on target. Like, oh wow, my dot's all over the target. Yeah. But it's a little bit harder to differentiate that when you're on an iron sight scenario.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so 2008, you get started. When did you actually say, okay, I'm going to go chase being like a professional shooter, sponsorship, and actually make this like a career?
Well, so to me, first off, even though I'm heavily invested, I really like shooting, practical shooting. It is not my career. I do training stuff to supplement what my hobby costs.
Sure, but you're still a shooting career as part of this.
Yeah, so I don't do hobbies like kind of half-assed. I always if I'm doing something, I'm all in. Yeah, so if I knew that when I wanted to get into the shooting sports, and I was actually given some really good advice when I first started it, just go out and get a cheaper gun because you don't want to spend a bunch of expensive a bunch of money on expensive guns and gear and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't really want to do it. So I went out and bought the cheapo stuff and explored the hobby. And once I discovered, hey, this is something I really want to do, then I got investing more in better quality guns and that kind of thing. But I've never really been a dabbler. So I don't dabble in hobbies. I don't dabble in the stuff that I do. I'm usually all in.
That's cool.
So really wasn't that hard of a decision to be like, yep, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in on it.
That's awesome. So when did you, work up from, where did you start in the classification for GM levels and then going to nationals? What was your first nationals?
So from the start, when I started shooting USPSA to it started in 2008, is the tail end of 2008. I went from unclassified to Grandmaster in 18 months. And I attribute that to I'm a big guy, meaning I'm really good at controlling recoil. Mm-hmm. So my gun doesn't flip a lot. It's really easy for me to shoot aggressively. Yeah. That's really what it can. So it's easy for me to shoot aggressively. A lot of the classification, classifiers kind of reward shooting aggressive, mm-hmm. That kind of scenario. And my first major match was actually the Area 2 match down in Phoenix. And that was in the November of the first, year that I started. And that was my first major match. I was like, oh, wow, every major match is like this. This is awesome. So I'm actually glad that I got a taste of it, like a legit mm-hmm. level 3, level 2, level 3 match quality event, or else I think it would have been a lot longer for me to venture out and try different major matches and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the following year I went to the Nationals.
Wow.
But to me, I've always kind of had the mindset of there's really not any one match is more important than the other.
Yeah.
And that's part of my competition brain, where if I treat every match and every stage like it's the Nationals, then it doesn't matter where I'm at to shoot a match. I can still, conjure up the gusto to do the performance I need to do.
Oh, I'm excited to talk about mental game for sure. That's interesting. Now, did you know anybody when you were diving into USPSA? Did you have friends? Who was the first people that you met too? I'm kind of curious.
So I actually didn't. I didn't have the only friend that I had was the first interaction that I had with practical shooting was one of my friends that we were part of the same club. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, if you really like this practical shooting stuff, you should check out IDPA and Steel Challenge and USPSA. And for me, I'm always a doer. Show me where to go and I'm going to go on the path. So I just found like, oh, you should like in our section, we have a section website that lists our schedule of all the different clubs. So I just went to that website and I'm like, oh, next weekend is this club. I called up that master director and I said, hey, I'm new. What do I do? And they're like, oh, come down and bring your stuff. And that's just what I did. So I've really not had a problem just showing up and attending and participating. And that's one of the really cool things I really like about USPSA and just practical shooting in general is it's attended by very genuine and honest people that are all willing to help each other out.
Yep.
Like even like the hardest competitors against each other, those are usually the people that are helping each other the most, so they can both compete at their top of their performance. I really like that part about the sport.
Yeah. So did you have like, I don't know, I'll call it a celeb or like a celeb or someone that you really wanted to meet or that you followed that you finally got to meet in the shooting sports?
Actually, not really. You know, when I started, it was before the whole Instagram, YouTube, that kind of stuff. Like you could buy books like Brian Eno's book or Matt Burkett book or videos like DVDs.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that.
DVDs, sorry.
Yeah. And so one of the cool things is that when I started, one of our local shooters was a well-known national competitive GM, Ron Avery, and I actually got to shoot on his squad on my second match.
Oh wow!
So that was actually awesome because it's like here I'm a novice, I don't even know like what's what, but I get to see what GM performance is.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the cool things about having a highly attended section is that you get to see all the different levels of performance. You kind of know like how deep is this pool.
Right.
Like how deep is the rabbit hole?
And the opportunity, I think, with getting to shoot on like what I would call like super squads or those professional levels is very, very rare. Like I got to shoot Area 5 with Casey, Jesse, Shane, Ashley. I mean, Michelle, you watch them shoot and you're just like, oh, that was the coolest thing to see that level. And then I mean, it doesn't, for me, I didn't really care where I placed, but for me, it kind of made me like, okay, if I'm going to be a better shooter, then I need to run it the way they ran it instead of like a cautionary way or right. Like just, it was a learning experience for me with even like the timing of different like bobbers or swingers or whatever that looked like. I'm like, I'm going to go for it.
Heck yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the cool things about seeing maximum performance is it like gives you that carrot of like, oh, I could do that sequence or whatever, right? Like, or that plan looks really cool now.
Yep.
Sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't, right?
Oh, it was a blast. Because I was shooting slide right dot open for funsies. And I'm like, I'm going to just floor it.
Cool.
Weekend style. But yeah, so question on the growth. So 18 months, there's a lot of people that want to get there. What did the training, whether it was physical, mental, dry fire, live fire, like look like to even get there?
So the fun thing, like I get this question a lot, and here's the realistic answer that is super unglamorous, and the reality of it is that I came into the practical shooting sports as a GM student of myself, meaning I know exactly what Charlie needs to test something, observe something, formulate a training plan around something. And it really kind of stemmed from my work. So in my work, I would get thrown into random scenarios all the time where I'd have to learn products, learn how to fix things all the time. That it's like, oh, we just released this product. There's no manuals yet. Go fix it. Right. Like, so I'd get thrown into that a lot. And that fostered my teach Charlie how to fix it and learn it skill. And I brought that skill over to the practical shooting game. And that's really where, I mean, the short duration of that climb through the classification system, for me, I can attribute it to solidly, like, I didn't waste a lot of time practicing things that did not have a lot of performance value, right? So I quickly learned that there's certain things that we do in practice that, sure, there's things we have to learn and get proficient at, but we can spend a crap ton of time training skills that are tenth of a second skills, even though we're losing stages by multiple seconds.
Right.
And I quickly found like, oh, wait a minute. I don't care about these tenth of a second things anymore. Let me work on these second things.
Right.
These things that, what am I wasting 2 or 3 seconds on? And that's how I'd always evolved my training program around, let me fix the biggest cuts Like I tell my students, like, this game's a death by 1,000 little cuts.
Yep.
Some cuts are deeper than others. I want to work on the deep cuts first, then worry about the shallow cuts later.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how like, there's no magic in it. You still have to do the embrace the suck practice to learn the stuff and put the rounds down range and do the repetitions of the dry fire to, get all the gun handling mechanics and all that stuff figured out. But you need to do it in a coordinated fashion, that you can measure. I think that's the primary issue. Those two things are the primary issue, like a lot of my students have, or just in general. It's like people think, oh, I'm going to take a class, and just by attending this class, it's magically going to fix things.
Yeah.
So a class is nothing more than an opportunity to point out opportunities that you can fix things after the class.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
that was my learning experience with Mason's class, was learning what I need to work on, learning the drills that would help to work on that, and then taking that home. Like that's huge. And I think Sean Griffith posted that on Instagram. It was like, it's movement and it's transitions more so than the reloads and the draws. Like those matter, but those are, like you said, tenths of a second, and those are what everybody practices on Instagram. But realistically, it is the movement and the transitions.
Yeah. I always joke with my students. I say, if I had a Wayback Machine and I could go back in time and tap 2008 Charlie on the shoulder and tell him something other than the winning Powerball numbers, I would tell him, you're getting into a movement game that has some shooting involved.
Yeah.
Not a shooting game that has some movement involved.
Yep.
Because so if people attack their practice focusing on the movement things first and the shooting stuff second, they would dramatically improve their match performance.
Yeah. 100%. Cool. So I want to talk about nationals. You did well at nationals. That was fun. What does training look like for you, though, leading up to nationals? Even though you already talked about it, though, is that you treat everything like nationals, every stage like a national. But did you do anything different in that time leading up to it?
So I would say yes, but it was predominantly in a negative connotation for my own performance, because I had a couple different classes that I had scheduled leading up to the nationals. So I actually had back-to-back classes right before the nationals. So it's like, I find that super awesome. So I didn't have a lot of dedicated time to actually do my own practice.
Yeah.
But I've never been a fan of the kind of like the ebb and flow style of training or ramp up for events.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't take an off season.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I live in Colorado. It snows. The weather sucks. Okay, embrace the suck and go out and shoot. Right. So
you move. You move. That's the answer.
So I don't have any kind of special, it's this big match, I got to do this extra practice. Like, I never get into that mode. I just have my normal maintenance that I do regardless. So that way, if I wanted to choose, I want to go to this major match tomorrow, I'm ready to go. Like, I don't have that mental game problem thinking, I didn't practice up for it, I'm not ready, right? Because a big part of this game is mental confidence, right? And if we don't have confidence in what we want to do, then it's going to be very hard for us to perform subconsciously.
How did you teach yourself this mental brain that you have?
So I actually, I came from a prior hobby of racing radio control cars as a kid all the way up into a young adult. And I did that for almost 20 years.
I need video.
And I won several national championships and that kind of stuff. So I actually came into the practice shooting sports already understanding a competition brain.
Yeah.
Right. And I need to maintain skills at things brain, meaning I need this quantity of regular practice. I need this quality of maintaining my equipment, and that kind of stuff. So I think that there's really nothing new from that perspective in the shooting sports. Obviously, the tools that we use to compete are different.
Right.
But the same methodology of going to a match and realizing I have the opportunity to succeed or fail.
Yeah.
At any time, right? There's a lot of people that are like gun enthusiasts that get into the competition world. Like, they've never done competition stuff in their life. And then now they have to learn this competition brain along with everything else, which that's a very difficult task in of itself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the head games. Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting, and maybe you do this, do you ever come off a stage ever in your life happy, excited, or, every single time I see someone walk off stage, they're always like shaking their head, even if they like crushed it or did really well, even though I know their level of shooting, I'm like, why is it never perfect?
Yeah. So that is actually an interesting, so the people that are kind of reside in this world of suck, meaning I suck, I suck, I suck, I suck.
Mhm.
Those are usually the people that they're focused on. I want to fix the things I suck at.
Yeah.
Right. So that's actually a really good mindset to be in skill building. And the challenge is that we play a game that there's no perfect score.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
like in USPSA, it's hit factor. You can always shoot the stage faster, or you can shoot with more points.
Yep.
Right. Or a little bit of both. Right. So I can count on one hand with four fingers 4 stage runs in my tenure of USP or practical shootings from 2008 to now, where I walked off of a stage run and I was like, holy cow, the God just bestowed upon me magical skills. Everything went perfect. Nothing could have ever gone better in that stage run. So 4 stages out of I don't know how many stages I've shot or matches I've shot, it's a lot. Right.
Oh.
So having an expectation of I want to shoot perfect every time that's a very difficult world to live in, because we're almost always going to have this quagmire of fail, right?
Yeah.
We got to navigate the quagmire all the time. But like on the range, I'm usually the jovial person. I'm usually the guy joking around and playing around and that kind of stuff. And
it helps.
I've always had that skill of being able to turn on the serious Charlie, get the job done, and then turn off the serious Charlie and have fun and, entertain myself and whatnot, right?
You're one of the only people I know I do this that talks in third person. Like, why do you say Kenzie needs this? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Charlie needs this. Do you think that level of like playfulness though does help in the mental game?
Absolutely. Because in the end, and this is different for everybody. Like for me, practical shooting sports is my hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Like I take it super serious. I do it a ton. My participation level is insane, but I also keep it in the proper context to my everyday life. Meaning, I know that I could go to the Intergalactic Ultron Championships tomorrow, and regardless of where I finish in that match, I could win it, I could lose it, whatever, finish in the middle. I come back home, I'm still Charlie Perez.
Yeah.
I still have a mortgage, I still have a family, I still have things I have to do. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a benefit, because I'm not treating these events or matches as something super special that it really isn't.
Life or death.
Right? Exactly. Like I'm yet to see anybody drive out of a match winning it saying, oh yeah, look at my yacht or my briefcase full of cash. Like what's at stake is very little.
Yeah.
And our universe is so small that, like, think about national champions walking around the store.
Oh, none.
Right.
Clueless. Airports, clueless. Yeah.
Exactly. People are like, oh my God, that's Mac Rochelle at Costco. Right. Never. Like that doesn't happen. Right?
I wish it would one day. I wish it would. I just want to be recognized in an airport just once. It'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. Joe Farrell shared with me he recently was. I was like, "You made it, dude."
There you go. That's awesome.
You made it. I want to ask you too. Okay, so I know that you're like very Charlie Charlie assessing yourself. Are there other people though that you train with or shoot with or whatever that like sees your weaknesses or flaws that maybe you didn't see? Like, do you ever get that feedback from other people?
Absolutely. And I've actually sought out training. Like I try to make it a point to every year take a class from somebody else.
Same, yeah.
And it's kind of like regardless of their skill set, really, because you don't have to have special letters next to your name like a GM or an M to have the skill of assessment, right? Anybody can assess somebody else's performance and provide feedback on what they see. So I like to take classes from other people, and I also like to take classes from other people that have shooting and moving styles that are opposite of me. That way I'm like, hey, what can I pull out of their toolbox and put in my toolbox? What can I pick out of their skill set that can augment and make mine better? So And I also ask my squad mates, like, hey, dude, like, how can I do this better? What am I screwing up here? Because we, like, when the buzzer goes off, it's like lizard brain, right? We just do our thing and like, oh, we survived. What happened? I don't know, right? So it's really hard to assess what you're doing in the moment,
Yeah.
and that's a distraction in of itself.
Yeah.
So uh, I always like to ask people for their guidance, right? And I think that like I've gotten like awesome stage plans from C-class dudes because they seen something that I missed, right? So it's always good to keep your ears open and not be that, oh, I'm the best guy on the range. You can't tell me what to do.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the sport attracts a lot of A-type personalities where their ego is ahead of everything else.
You
right?
really in shooting in a male-dominated sport? You don't say. Really? I don't
No.
think that. Everyone's really cool. They have no egos. They're never, right. They're always wrong. Right. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Okay. This will be controversial, and I don't know your answer actually. Is pistol caliber carbine practical shooting?
Ooh, is it practical shooting? Well, so that's a really loaded question because if we think about the games that we play, is any of it practical compared to like it's not. Like it's it's all a game, right?
Yep.
It's all a game. So, to me, the only time that I get my hackles up around PCC is if a match director or a stage designer is making their preferred division affect the quality of the match.
Yep.
Right. To me, that's not right. Like you shouldn't have things that, okay, this platform I can do better because it is a PCC.
Right.
Right. Like plate racks at 60 yards, stupid stuff like that. Like I've seen that happen and I'm like, okay, who designed that stage? Oh yeah, PCC dude.
Yep.
Like to me, that's not right. But the good thing is that like it's not happening, at least in my area, that stuff is not happening anymore. Yeah. Because I don't know if it's because enough tires have been slashed and windshields have been busted. Like, I don't know. Maybe the lessons have been learned.
I've heard I've seen it this year, and I won't mention where, but they straight up said, like, match director said, like, I made this a very unfriendly PCC match, and he did, where it was really kind of convoluted with some of even the shooting boxes. You couldn't get the gun in and out of what it was, and I'm like, that's kind of BS as well. You don't want to make it, or like even the hard off lean whatever for a rifle. I mean, I don't know. So there's all of that. So it's against PCC, it's against production. I feel bad for production people sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's just that is part of stage designing. Like you said, there is something to that really does bother me in matches.
Yeah. But I mean, that the stage design thing it's not division specific. It's really, the cognizant decision upon, what does my customer base need?
Yep.
Right. Yep. And unfortunately, like there's, for a lot of major matches, the stage designers and the match directors are like, oh, this is our major match. We got to make it extra crazy, right? Or extra hard or extra this. And it's like, no, dude, you just need to run a solid match.
Yep.
That people enjoy. They want to go and, oh, that was an entertaining stage. I actually want to shoot.
Yep.
That's what makes a cool match, not some crazy 60-yard plate rack stuff, right? Like,
that's I would say circusy stuff I kind of saw this year where I was like, and I, match directors are my buddies, and there is one that I'm never going back to right now. I was like, that was the worst, most fun, circusy, gimmicky, like all in one. Like you didn't have to do that many. I don't know. I'm out. Like I'm out. But that was frustrating to see. Like you said, it's like customer base. They're not listening to the customer base or seeing that.
Yeah. Well, as us as customers, all we can really do is vote with our wallets.
Yep.
Right.
That's why.
So if you consume a product, it's like you want a pizza and you go to the pizza store and that pizza sucks, you're not going back to that pizza store.
No.
Right. And that's where the match directors, if they're really wanting to make a solid product, they should be observing those statistics.
Yeah.
Saying, well, year after year, why do I have a 50% turnover? Well, it's because your stages suck, dude. Like, they're not fun. Nobody likes to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So and like you said, I'm one of those rare birds that really does like bow with mullet. I'm like done, sorry, done, but not sorry because it is a huge investment, even if it is a hobby. It's traveling matches,
Absolutely.
$2,000 maybe more, three at
Hmm.
nationals is insane. But um, I'm interested about. Are you ever going to shoot PCC? I want to ask that too.
So a lot of people don't know this, but me as a trainer, and I get students of all divisions. Like there's people that come in my class, they're PCC shooters and whatnot.
Yep.
So me as an instructor, I need to understand the platforms and what is required to perform well in each platform. So I went down the PCC rabbit hole, and I actually built up an MPX and also a blowback AR9 style
Okay.
PCCs, and I figured out like which one is best, what are the benefits and detriments of both. I didn't shoot any matches with those, but I did practice a ton with both of those platforms to figure out like what is really needed to perform well
Mhm.
with a carbine. And I also like to shoot just straight up carbine matches that
Fun.
are center fire, 223 matches. Those are
Yeah.
great. There's a lot of fun. You learn a lot about stability in those matches,
Yeah.
right? And what is a solid shooting position.
Yep. Noveske Carbine used to do those out here, and I wish they'd bring those back. But I think PCSL will help bring that back. But I like a solid just 223, not 9 mil carbine. Like I want to shoot a real rifle carbine match again.
Yeah.
Or two gun being real rifle and a pistol.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can share or want to share if that's more of like class stuff, but can you talk about what you did find with PCC is something that you need to like teach your students to improve upon to be better?
Yeah. So you need like the biggest challenge that I see with a lot of PCC shooters is that they're usually like PCC tourists, meaning let me try to make my pistol gear work with my PCC.
Yeah.
Well, that is rarely a good solution. Usually, ammunition needs to be tuned specifically for the PCCs, either mechanically from a feeding perspective or from an accuracy perspective.
Yeah.
So getting a PCC to run reliably is usually like the number one issue that a lot of people have. Like
95% right there.
I've told a lot of students are like, hey, tell me how to do this one stage better. And I'm like, yeah, make your gun run.
Yep. 95%. That's it. But the movement, I mean, people shoot it after, saying stuff to me, and then they're like, oh, moving between walls is hard. Figuring out how to throw the rifle over your shoulder is hard. I mean, I get it. It's PCC and a rifle, or rifle and a pistol match, but it is a lot different than people think once they try it.
Absolutely. Yeah, your cone of fire on a PCC in a proper PCC stance or carbine stance is way narrower than a pistol.
Yep.
Right. So positioning of footwork is ultra important when you're shooting a carbine.
Yeah, totally different. Cool. I had another fun question. You probably answered this before. Where did the name Big Panda come from?
So that's actually a nickname that was given to me in my first year of shooting. Like I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". I'm chubby in all the right spots. And I run around really aggressively because to me, if the gun's not running, meaning shooting, then it's just lost time. So when I'm running between positions, I'm running as hard as I can. And one of the local matches, I was running between these positions, and one of the competitors is like, "That guy's like a big panda," and it just stuck. So, and I'm glad that nickname stuck because I'm sure that there's all kinds of off-color crazy nicknames I could have gotten instead.
True.
But I'll take Big Panda.
And so you developed your whole brand around this. So your Instagram handle, I mean.
Yeah, why not?
I love it.
Gotta have fun with it.
Oh, I agree. My new one that's being adopted is annoying, but I'm just being called Pickles, which actually happened because Jason, my buddy, my teammate, was like, hey, Pickles, and I didn't realize it. And I turned my head and looked at him, and I was like, I did not just answer to that. Darn it. So thinking about putting that on a jersey one day. Just Pickles.
Why not?
Okay, so let's dive into teaching. And then we can dive into the book as well. But teaching for you, like, again, going back to 2008, getting shooting, when did you start instructing?
So I started instructing in 2012. Okay. And I found that, I made GM really fast. And the challenge with making GM is that at least in USPSA, the skills that are tested to rate our classification are very shooting and gun handling biased.
Yeah.
Like we're not really measuring movement. Yep. We're not really measuring strategy, right? And if we think about the times where we lose a lot of, performance on a field course stage, it's on these movement and strategy things, right? So I made GM right away, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm a GM. I'm going to go to this major match. I'm going to kick butt. Well, I went to that major match, and I got my butt kicked.
Yep.
And I'm like, what the heck? I'm a GM now. It's supposed to be awesome,
GM,
right?
Bro.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I always like to say when people first turn into a GM or get GM classification, they're baby GMs.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, you made the card. Now let's actually get GM performance in major matches. And that took me several years to actually start performing at a GM level in the match. And that's actually where I really found that, hey, these movement things are what's costing me the most performance. It's not these gun handling things or the shooting aggression things. It's the movement stuff. And so that's when I really changed up my whole training program to be like, hey, let me focus on this movement stuff. And I knew that through the arc of like fixing my own problems, I'd always go out to the range with shooting buddies and stuff, and we'd help each other out. And that assessment skill of assessing somebody else's performance, providing feedback, testing things, how do people, receive information, process it, that kind of stuff. Like I've always been a why person. Like I need to know the why around something before I can like understand it. Yeah. Like why do we do something this way versus that way? I'm going to test both ways and understand the why. That way I can make a solid decision. And I found that the more I could assess myself, just like exercising any other skill, like I need to be able to assess myself better. Well, to do that, I can start assessing other people. Yeah. Right. So that's when it started. Like, I can do classes, and then I can offset the cost of my hobby by, hosting classes and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's predominantly like my whole goal in doing training is not to like make a living at it. It's to pay for this affliction or addiction that I like to do. Right. So every year, if it's a break even thing for me, it's a win. Right. Because it's achieved its goal.
Yes. Okay. I want to keep going to that in a second, but okay. When you were talking about the GM stuff, do you think, maybe this will bring up some stuff too, do you think that system is a little bit flawed nowadays?
Well, that's another loaded question because I think it's always been flawed.
Yeah.
Okay. So the good thing about it is that on average, the classification system is fairly accurate to people's performance. The bad thing is that at least in my experience from 2008 to now, there's always been this ebb and flow of them changing the 100% of the classifier stages.
Yeah.
So new classifiers come out, the 100% hit factors are too low. Yep. Where they need to be, or maybe they add a new division and they poach the high hit factors from a different division. Like when PCC came out, they just assigned opens 100% high hit factors to PCC, and then that's why we have a crap ton of PCC GMs and masters out there that are B-class pistol shooters, right? But this ebb and flow has always happened, right? I think one good thing is that USPSA tries to make it good.
Yeah, yeah.
Like statistically, the thing that I don't like like right now, it's in the high.
Yeah.
Meaning, I think that the 100% hit vectors are probably 10%, maybe 15% above where they need to be.
Yeah, they're high.
Right, and they're pretty high right now. And the thing that really kind of sours me on it is that, like, if we almost always at the Nationals, they have a few stages that are classifiers-like stages that ultimately turn into classifier stages. If you go back in history and look at the Nationals performance and that's that classifier that was 5 years ago in this Nationals, and look at the hit factors of what took to win a national title versus what the 100% is today, those things are like apples and oranges. Like it's usually 20% more in the classification system now than what it was to win the national title.
Jesus.
And to me, it's like, I don't understand this. It's two different games in one, really, right? Yeah. Like you have this classification game and you have this practical shooting game.
Totally separate.
They're not the same thing.
Nope.
Right?
Nope. Yep, because you were talking about gun manipulations, the tenths of a second things, which is normally reloads and aggressivity, but it's standing still. And I'm still annoyed by you go shoot open GM and then you're going to be a master revolver, or you're a GM PCC and you're now a production master. Charlie, how does that make sense? Why would I ever want to go back to a pistol in at that point? Because it's not even fun at that point. You can't be competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think within certain divisions that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like partner divisions.
Yeah.
Like dot to dot. Like that would make sense. Iron to iron, that makes sense.
Reload, maybe the capacity. 10 to yeah.
Revo to anything else? No. PCC to anything else? No.
Yeah.
Right? Like some of that stuff doesn't make sense. But then again, that's where like I'm yet to see USPSA come up with a formula of classification measurement that is consistent.
Yeah.
Right. When I started, there wasn't a USPSA published 100% hit factor, and so what you'd have to do is you'd actually have to do the math backwards. You go shoot a match. Oh, I shot 36%, and then you do the math backwards and figure out what the 100% was.
Wow.
And when I started, I found out, like, I did that stuff because I'm like, I want to know what the 100% is. And alarmingly, I found that a lot of the classifiers had a 100% hit factor that was a whole number, meaning a 10 or a 9 or a 7, right? And I was like, wait a minute, like, when's the last time I shot a stage and I had a whole number out to the third digit past the decimal that was
never.
It's super that is not going to happen, right? Yeah. If it does, go buy a lottery ticket, right?
The Powerball.
So then I was like, so what are they using to determine the 100%? And I found that if I applied a 1 second to the draw, a 1 second to the reload, and every shot and every transition was a quarter second, that magically equated to the 100% of a lot of those classifiers.
Interesting.
And that's what when I first started, a lot of the classifiers are still the 99 series.
Yep.
So the 99 dash whatever. A lot of those 100% during that time frame, if you use that math, my draw's a second, my reload's a second, each shot and transition's a quarter second, that was 100%, assuming you're shooting all of the alphas, like all the points, right? And over time, they've done like different processes of, well, we'll take the national stage and we'll throw out the top two and average it out, or okay, we're gonna just use the 100% of the nationals match, and then that's the 100%. And I don't know what the solid answer is, but I think that like if they picked a process, if they use national match performance on the classifiers, and national doesn't mean it has to happen at the nationals. Like, so there's lots of area matches that happen every year that get national level performance happening at them, right? They could deploy these classifiers at area matches and nationals, and then have the 100% defined by those, I just won this freaking match performance, right? And then add the element of your classification can go down as well as up. Right? And if it can go down, all this stuff, this whole sandbaggy, grandbaggy stuff, it goes away.
Yeah, it does.
Because now you have to consistently perform at that level.
Yeah.
And it puts all the classifiers 100% in a realistic place that matches the reality of this is the performance I need to win a freaking match.
Yeah.
Not just go bananas on this one classifier and hopefully I hook up.
Yeah, and I think that would match up too with like I mean, I know it doesn't change a lot, but the fluctuation of who is shooting at the high level. So when you have those 99 series and they're shot out by a Christian sailor, like, then why can't I go down, right? Like you said, like, I think that changes too over time.
Yeah,
especially
or
these young kids coming. Holy cow!
Or simply say, okay, we're going to take USPSA is going to set up a classifier match, right, and invite the top 10 shooters in the U.S. to come and just shoot the shit out of all the classifiers and determine a baseline for all the divisions.
Yep.
But I mean, that would take effort, and it seems like, we're just going to wing it.
Yeah, too much to ask for. No, I really wanted to talk to someone about this that gets that. That's been on my mind for a long time. I know it's like the least of people's priorities, but I guess that's something that's always bothered me, is figuring that out.
Well, that to me, like I love USPSA. I'm a section coordinator myself for
Yeah.
USPSA. I'm a club president for USPSA. I'm all in on USPSA, but to me, like the classification system is a very good marketing carrot that USPSA has that they just screw the pooch on deploying.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why they would screw up that carrot as much as they do, because it is a marketing tool, right? And it's an engagement tool,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I don't know why you'd want to screw up that engagement tool.
I like that. And something to chew on. Cool. Going back to teaching, and actually, I guess in line with what we're talking about now is, can you generalize maybe like the top 3 or 5 things that you see your students come in and need to work on no matter what? It's just like universal, whether it's grips, trigger control. Like, do you have those kind of things in your mind that you see every time?
Yeah. So, so the number one issue that I see is that we play a game where we get to shoot the stage how many times?
Once.
Once. Okay. So we play a game where we need to be able to perform at maximum performance on the one time we get to shoot the stage.
Yep.
Right. So the problem is that people practice in a manner as if they have endless runs to do it right.
Yeah.
And then they practice that behavior of like, oh, I need to be ankle deep in brass before I can do it right.
Yeah.
Well, we don't play that game. Like I'm yet to go to any match where I'm 200 rounds in and I'm starting the match. Like that doesn't happen. Right. So that's the number one challenge that I see people have is you need to start practicing this game in the exact same manner as you're exposed to it. So your practice methodology needs to be very dry fire focused, because when we go to a match, I don't want to say we have unlimited time, but we have a lot of time to inspect the stages and walk the stages and dry fire the stages with our hands. Mm-hmm. We need to hone that ability to take that hands dry fire and make it realistic enough that it's going to equate to a live fire performance. So that's the number one thing. The second thing is, since we have this process of, we have this ensemble of skills we have to deploy within a stage, right? Entering, exiting positions, drawing the gun, moving, reloading, engaging multiple targets, all these different things. We have to program that so our subconscious can do it.
Yep.
So the second problem that I see a lot of people do is that they go to a stage, they figure out a strategy. Meaning, oh, I'm going to go here first. I'm going to shoot that first, and that second, and that third. I'm going to go over this other place. They think that coming up with a strategy in of itself is programming. That is absolutely not programming. That's just, where do I go? What are the requirements of the stage, right? So a lot of people abandon their programming effort, and the programming effort means you need to rehearse that strategy enough times, both physically and mentally, that you can just hand the keys over to your subconscious and let your subconscious do it.
Yeah.
Right. And like my personal litmus test of, have I programmed the stage enough times, is if I close my eyes or turn around and face away from the stage, so I can't cheat and look at the targets and look at the positions, and I run through my stage strategy, my plan, right, with zero hesitations. If I can't do that, it is not programmed enough.
Nope.
Like I lovingly ask my students, who here likes memory stages? And the answer is always like, boo, we hate those, right? And the reality is if we programmed every stage to the level a memory stage requires,
we would be good.
We would be awesome.
Yep.
And there would never be anything such as a memory stage, because they're all memory stages, right? We're putting in that same mental effort on every stage. We'd perform way more consistently. We would allow ourselves the opportunity to perform subconsciously.
Yep. Have you noticed, like, when people leave out a position in that walkthrough and then they just cannot fix it, or they forget the reload in that process and they cannot fix it, and then it does go to shit?
Oh yeah. Well, that's the other part about, like, I tell people, like, when I walk up on a stage I've never seen before,
Mhm.
I purposefully keep my hands down,
Okay.
because pointing your hands at stuff, that is a programming thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to be programming things when you don't even know where all the targets are yet,
Right.
right? Because it's way harder to reprogram something than to program it the first time.
Yep.
So when I come up on a stage that I've never seen before, I purposely keep my hands down and I purposely just meander around the stage in what usually looks to be an opposing strategy direction, right? So I'll do a lefty's look through of the stage just to find all the targets,
Right. So it's not
right?
programmed because you're never going to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it's I'm keeping myself from having the opportunity to do any programming,
Yeah.
because I'm just meandering around. Where do I go? What can I see?
Yep.
What are all the shooting positions I have to go to? That kind of stuff. So once I figure out a strategy, then the hands can come up and I can dry fire the stage physically or mentally. But if I start doing that stuff and I'm like, crap, I missed that shooting position,
You're done.
now I'm in a reprogramming effort. And I don't know about other people, but for me, that is at least a 10x effort.
Oh yeah.
It takes 10 times the effort for me to reprogram something than it does to program it the first time.
Yep.
So I'm lazy by nature. Like, I'm not gonna put myself in a place where I have to reprogram something if I don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, it's simple stuff that you see, like where I go walk and see, even if it is hardcover, what is the target in IPSC or USPSA, or is it hardcover? Is it a full target? You know, there's so much that I just like go down range and look at. And I see people walking and they're like, oh, I forgot that target. Hey, bro. I'm like, there's the target right there. Oh, now I got to go do it over again. I'm like, how about walk it first?
Yeah.
Around.
Well, that's also the entertainment part of going to a match, right? Like, I always like, there's a performance half and there's an entertainment half, right? We pay an entry fee for both, right?
Oh, it's funny. It's funny. Okay, so we had two. Is there a third one or any more that you want to touch on?
So the third one realistically is muscle strength. So we play a game where the predominant muscles are our grip strength and our quads. Like, if our quads and our legs, we need to be able to squat aggressively and launch out of positions aggressively, right? So I'm yet to see any track stars not work on the strength of their legs.
Right.
Like, I'm yet to see any, bodybuilders not improve the strength of their grips so they can pull big bars.
Yep.
Right. So our connection with the gun is our hands, right? And our ability to grip the gun hard allows us to shoot from less tension the more pounds of grip force we have on the gun, right? So easy numbers, let's say that it requires 100 pounds of grip force on a gun to manage the recoil properly, meaning it returns to a level state after every shot.
Right.
If your grip strength is weak and your maximum grip strength is, let's say, 110 pounds, that means consciously, tension-wise, you're like, I have to grip this thing super hard. Well, it's hard to do stuff fluidly when we're super tense.
Yep.
Right? Whereas if we increase our inherent grip strength and now we have 200 pounds of grip strength, now I only need 100 pounds. Okay, I have a firm grip on the gun. It has enough pounds of force to manage the recoil properly, but I'm way less tense.
Relaxed, yeah.
Yeah. So having, working on your grip strength, working on your quad strength, those are two things that almost every student that I go through, like, it's like, hey, dude, like, how many squats are you doing a day? And they're like, what?
Females are like 40. Going to the bathroom alone.
Yeah.
Oh, so funny. Awesome. Okay, cool. So tell me about the classes that you do teach for people listening. Like, you travel? Do you do private one-on-ones? Do you do virtual? What do you do?
So I predominantly do 2-day group classes, either locally in Colorado or, travel. And I don't have a very predefined schedule. It's more of like, if there's a need, we'll pull it together and do it.
Like 2 weeks before nationals? No problem.
Sure, whatever, man. Whatever we got to do. Like, a lot of them are scheduled like well in advance. Like, usually like this time of year, I'm actually starting to book out classes for next year.
Yep.
Right. So like, once the schedule is set, and to me, doing the class, like, those are my commitments Like I'm not going to teach a class and be like, hey guys, let me shoot this drill a bunch of times because I got the nationals.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're paying me to help you out.
Yep.
It's not my time. This is your time.
Yeah, I'm very
right?
type A
So
like that too. That's like that's your word, your value, and yeah, your commitment.
yeah. So I like throughout the year, like people reach out to me, hey, you want to come do a class, that kind of stuff. So that's the best way to do it. Like on my website, bigpandaperformance.com, there's a contact form. Send me an email out of that and say, hey, I want to do a class in my area, and then we work it out.
Cool.
Right. And if it fits in my schedule, great. If it doesn't, we'll try another time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So the moments we've been waiting for too. What led you to do this finally and write this book and put it down? How long did it take you? What was this process like? There's all these questions because how often do you hear people too that say, I want to write a book. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. Haha. How much fun was it to really write a book?
So that is the reason, the why. Mm-hmm. So in my classes, I always found like the first day at the start of the class, we have a discussion portion, and we discuss. Like I ask the students, what do you think? What are your top threes? What are your top three strengths? What are your top three weaknesses? What are your top three goals? And based on the response of the class, I formulate the discussion portion that we're talking about. That way we can focus on the cuts that these people have.
Yeah.
Well, I always found that during that discussion portion, it's like, man, this is this other thing I want to talk about, but there's just not time.
Yep.
You only have 2 days with a group of people. You could spend all 2 days talking about stuff, right? So people come to pew classes to pew, right? You got to pew at some point. So I was thinking to myself, well, how, like it actually started out as a 1 page, here's some information to start off. Then it was 2 pages. Then it was 3 pages. And I was like, screw it. Like I'm kind of half-assing this crib notes thing. So I was like, I'm going to write a book to basically help my students understand the context of the information that we're going to go through in a class. And it's one of my, so it was really a greedy thing for myself to say, hey, let me make this discussion portion of the class easier.
You buy the book.
Because you get the book before the class, you read it, and then you come to the class, and then there's really no scenarios where you're discovering a new thing during that discussion. You know it, you read it, right? You may not fully understand the context of it or the depth of it, but it's not something completely new.
Or
right?
The boys, they lied and didn't do their homework and pretend.
Oh, that happens.
I know it does. I know. I went to grad school. I've been a teacher. I freaking know.
So that was the why. Why do I want to do it? So I was like, okay, I want to write this book. In me being an author, I thought, well, hey, I'll just start at the start and just write it from start to finish. How hard can that be? Well, I found that man, that is super tough because once you start writing, especially about technical skill stuff, there's all these different avenues and branches and things that you're talking about. And you're like, oh man, this is branching into this other skill that I want to talk about later. And I quickly found that I couldn't write it from start to finish.
Yeah.
And all I could do was basically, as I thought about skills, just put them down on paper. Mm-hmm. Write about this skill and not worry about any kind of overlap and any other content that I had.
Right.
And just dump it out. Yep. So I'd dump out about this skill, dump out about this next skill, and dump it. And then once I had all the skills dumped, then I went through the editing process to meld them together. What makes sense from a sequence and order of when the contents come together. And to me, that was the easy process, is to formulate where does it all go. The hard process was conceptually thinking of all the different skills we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And that whole process, it was 2 years.
Yeah.
It took me 2 years.
Yep. People do not understand the work that goes behind anything. Anything. I just can't say that enough, is that there's a huge investment. It's not easy. That is why so few people do it, but yeah, it's not easy. Yeah. I mean, I'm not on your level of that, but in my life with working and where I got, it was not overnight. It took years.
Mm-hmm.
Years.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like that though. When you're in it, does it feel like it took that long? No, not really.
No.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Gone. Yeah. It's cool though.
Yeah, and there's always that factor of it's your baby, right? So and you always want to polish it, and at some point you just got to be like, I got to be done with it.
You got to
I
send
got
it.
to. It's got to be. It is what it is, and it's actually like so. I released that book in 2018, and I make it a point to like reread my book every year for myself to make sure like hey, what have I learned beyond what I've put in this book.
Yeah.
And I'm almost to the point where like maybe there's version 2 is needed.
2.0.
Yeah, 2.0. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
So tell me, Charlie, I know we talked about this offline, but how would people go and buy this book or get this book or learn about it? Because I know that being a self-publishing author, it's not easy.
Yeah, so I don't, I publish it myself and I sell it myself on my website. So if you go to bigpandaperformance.com, you go on my store and you order it there. That's the only place you can purchase it. So I don't resell it through other vendors. I don't sell it on Amazon. No, there's not PDF copies. No, there's not digital copies. Yes, you actually have to buy a paper, book and flip through pages and read it, and that's just the reality of it.
I think it's the best way to learn, though. I mean, you see everybody else that's in our sport that they buy paper books, but it becomes like a bookmarking tool, a highlighting tool. All that.
Absolutely.
And I know that like you've got like different stuff in there when and what you mentioned before about measurements, so for people that are trying to level up or even getting started, right? I mean, I tell everyone get a timer, set a baseline, right? Set something that's like a reasonable goal and then try to push yourself to get to that. How do you, I know it's in there, but like how do you teach people to measure that over time?
Yeah, so just like you said, we need the tools to measure.
Yeah.
Right? So the tools of our game is, consistent replication of distance and difficulty, right? So a 10-yard target of this, openness, partial, or whatever you want to do, right? Mm-hmm. And you also need a measurement stick, right, of a shot timer, mm-hmm. right? And that's the thing that for some people it just blows my mind. They're like, oh my God, that shot timer is $100. And they're like, dude, you got a $4,000 gun on your belt.
Pistol. Yep.
You probably spilled $100 this month on, Starbucks, yep. Right? Like, quit whining about it. Just go.
Priorities, Charlie. I am the oldest 30-year-old millennial you will ever meet, and it's just amazing where it's Starbucks, alcohol, cigarettes. I can name a couple more if you'd like. I can find a budget. But it's the same thing with training, with getting your concealed carry permit. I can tell you 7,000 freaking things in your spending habits and your budget that it's about priority.
Yes.
Preach though.
So in order to understand, like, improve performance, we need to be able to measure performance.
You have to.
Right? Yeah. You need to figure out where am I currently at? Mm-hmm. Like, and the stigma of like, oh, I don't want to go to a match until I'm good enough.
Nope.
Well, sorry, bud. None of us are good enough. Like, at some point, you just got to dive in and do it, right?
Charlie's only been good enough 4 times.
Yeah.
4 times.
Exactly.
But you're right. Yep.
So, measure the performance. Where am I at today? And then when you know where you're at today, then you have to be able to measure what am I doing now, mm-hmm. right? And for a lot of us, we all have smartphones. You can video yourself doing stuff. And if you have that objective view of what you're doing, you can pick apart the sub-elements of what the task at hand is. Like it's a draw or a reload or a position entry, position exit. And the biggest problem I see people have is that they try to look at the performance as the ensemble, right? Instead of how do I get my hand from my side to my grip, right? And work on that. How do I aggressively get my hand to the grip? Okay, now I can do that. Okay, how do I get the gun out of the holster at an aggressive pace? Right? Before you even think about building a grip, like a 2-handed grip on the gun, like breaking these skills down in their sub elements, that's how we fix things.
Yep.
It's not just doing, tonight I'm going to do an hour of mindless dry fire draws, and that's magically going to fix something.
Right. Yep. I was learning recently underspeed, overspeed drills.
Mm-hmm.
Is that helpful?
So what's your definition of underspeed, overspeed?
The one I was
like artificially going slower than you need to, or artificially going faster?
exactly. So like and it kind of worked in live fire. I went as fast as I could. Didn't care if I made the hits or missed the hits. So I like 2 little mini poppers, 4 positions, just bing, 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 bing. I missed all of them. Then it was, you had the shot. So 2, 2, 2, and I hit every single one. Then blending the 2, and I was like, huh. And then I dropped like the overall time from a whole entire second running it before, and now I trained my brain to figure that out. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's always the limit of consistent success.
Yeah.
Like I like to tell people that we want to be able to perform skills at a 9 out of 10 success ratio.
Yeah.
Not a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Not a 10 out of 10. That's too conservative.
Nope.
Not a 7 out of 10. That's too wild. But we need a 9 out of 10 consistent performance. And for us to find where's that edge of 9 out of 10, we need to do a little bit of 7s.
Yep.
Right? We need to do a little bit of 11s, right? Like, and find where's that ebb and flow. And to me, it really, more so, it comes down to practicing in the proper mindset, right? Like the let me go crazy or go reserved. To me, that is let me find the boundaries practice.
Yeah.
When I'm in like, let me find the boundaries practice, I don't care if I hit the targets.
Yeah.
Right? I'm finding the boundaries. What's possible? What's not possible? That kind of stuff. But there's also the other part of the practice where you need match performance practice, meaning all the money's on the line. Am I going to win that yacht?
The Lambo, yeah.
Yeah. We need to practice in that same manner to say this needs to be a 9 out of 10 aggressiveness run.
Right.
That is solid run. And I need to practice being able to put myself in that mode. Right? Because that's a number one problem I see with a lot of people. And they practice a crap ton in the ebb and flow, meaning let me find the edges of things, but they don't practice enough in match mode.
Yeah.
Right? And really it comes down to, like, one of my worst questions I really hate is when people are like, what do you do for practice today? And I'm like, I do exactly what Charlie needs, and you're not Charlie.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And sorry, bud, that's rude, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
What I need to maintain and improve my skill is absolutely not what you need.
Yeah.
Right. So I can give you a potential solution for what you need to do. That's what my classes do. Right. But that's where, if you are missing that assessment skill, that's the skill you need to work on. Like, who cares? Who cares how fast you draw the gun? If you can't formulate a training plan, that is the number one skill you need to fix.
Yep. Last week was tuxedo to mini poppers to a no shoot. And I know that that's where I'm at in my life. Like, first shot I was always black and then makeup too. Oh my God, Charlie. But I know Kenzie, and I know exactly the shot calling's getting better. That's what's getting better. But it's still that hesitation where it's the pause on the mini popper for me, where I'm like, I wasted a second watching it or waiting, right, for the ding instead of calling it. So, yeah.
So the overshoot stuff, like talking about, like, just listening to how you're observing, which is cool. It's cool that you're observing, how am I failing at this?
Yeah.
Because if we don't observe the data, we can't fix it.
Yep.
Right? So, like, your description of, I'm transitioning from one target to a zebra target, and I'm overshooting, right? Into the black, then go back to the brown. To me, that is telling me that you're transitioning with your arms and not your legs.
Yeah.
And our legs are way stronger than our arms. And when we use our legs in transition, we can stop the gun aggressively in a precise location.
Whereas the arms
right?
are still, that makes sense.
Yes, they're way weaker. Or you're pointing at targets that are outside of your cone of fire, right? And I define, like, what is our cone of fire? How do we establish it? What do we know it? Like, it's all in my book.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, hint.
Yep.
Right?
No, yep. I know exactly what Kenzie needs to work on, and it is totally visual patience and like I don't know with the no shoot what's going on as much as assessment. Is it, I don't know, me looking too much at the white? Is it me trying to visualize that as just a harder target? Because that could be part of that mental thing where it's just another target, just another target, just another target.
Well, yeah. So the thing that a lot of people do is they run through it, like, especially in partial target stages, they have this crazy mixture of aiming spots.
Yeah.
Where they're deciding, where do I aim during their stage run? Where do I aim on this target? All I see is this no shoot, right? because we're seeing what we don't want to do versus what we want to do.
Yeah.
So that's where, like, I'll tell people, you need to pick a very specific place, especially shooting a dot where we need to be target focused. You need to pick very specific places on every single target in the array where you want your dot to reside or get to. Because, like, we grow up our whole lives, like, I have this finger, I want this finger to touch my nose, right? The desire of my finger to touch my nose, do I have to look my finger all the way into the nose? No. Proprioceptually, I know where my nose is compared to my hand, but that same process works with getting our sights on the target.
Yeah.
Right. If we're not looking in the correct place, where we look is where the gun's going to go, right? Or the bullets are going to go. So if we're distracted by a no shoot or distracted by hardcover, and we're looking at those things, that's where the gun's going to settle, and that's where our hits are going to be.
Yep.
So pick like, I don't know if you've, like, I haven't shot with you, but if in your practice, if you get these pairs of hits that are good pairs, but they're in just random places on the target, that's not a marksmanship problem.
Right.
That's a focal point problem.
Yep.
Meaning I need to wait until my eyes get here and let the gun get here on the target. Right. So once you start doing that and picking very specific places on the target to shoot at, that's when the hits become much easier.
Yeah.
The problem is that after the timer goes off, we feel like, oh my God, we got to do everything super crazy. I don't have time to aim.
Yep.
You got to get used to proving to yourself. And I actually spent like about 2 years in this mode of thinking things took way longer than they did.
Okay.
Right. And once every time I thought like things were taking longer than they should, this put this schedule in my head that now I feel like I'm behind schedule. And the first thing we do when we feel like we're behind schedule is we stop aiming.
Yeah.
Right. We just start blasting at targets. Right. So the way that I fix that is I measured in a shot timer. I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I feel rushed shooting performance.
Yep.
What are my splits? What's my stage time or my drill time? And then I'm going to be visually patient and wait for the things to get to where they need to be.
Yep.
Then I'll look at the timer and like, oh, look, it's the same time.
Yep.
Right.
1 for 1 is faster too.
Exactly.
When I've been home every week, I've been training with GM, and it was interesting to me where I would run the timer for him, and I'm like, that looked really slow. And then you look at the timer, it's like, okay, it's 4.2, whatever. And then I felt really slow, and then I was like, okay, that was 4.3, or we would be like 3.8, 3.9. Like it feels so much slower. But even one pickup, and then we look at the splits. Splits are for PCC, 0.1, 0.14, whatever. And that's not important. That's not where you lose the time. So it was a transitioning in the hits, but dude, life changing. I'm trying to get better.
Well, so for steel, for a lot of people on steel, since there are not perfs, and I actually discovered this pretty late in my adventure of the game, is that we actually use the perforations in cardboard targets to know where to aim at within the target, right? So we're looking for the perforations to register our sights on the target. Well, a steel target doesn't have perforations.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for us to revert to the sights are anywhere on the color of the steel. Usually it's white. It's anywhere in white. Let me just blast.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you could be shooting a delta on that steel, right? Okay, it's the same points hit, but the risk is over the top, right? It could have just as easily been a miss.
Yep.
Right. So that's where I tell people, if you're having challenges with steel, you need to make an alpha scoring zone within the steel.
Yeah.
Right. So if the circle is this big, your alpha is this big.
It's smaller. Yeah.
It's smaller. And then when you go practice, you paint the steel every time you shoot it and you score the targets. Did I shoot steel alphas or not? Right.
Do you ever add, because I have to put a focal point on a target where I'm putting like a white paster in the middle on brown, but maybe this is stupid. Would you paint that little center with like a little bit of blue paint over,
If I'm having trouble locating that portion of the target, absolutely I'll do that.
Okay.
But at some point, like that's a training wheels, right?
Yep,
at some point,
take it off. Yeah.
The training wheels got to come off because we don't have that in a match.
Right. Yeah.
But the funny thing is that if you think about what we do in matches, especially club matches, is the steel always painted?
Nope.
No.
Never.
What I'll do is I'll pick a specific hit on the steel and say, that's my aiming spot. Or I'll pick like if the cardboard target is so blasted out I can't see purse, I'll pick specific pieces of tape as my aiming spot.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always, like, if you just look for those opportunities, you'll be surprised how many opportunities there are of being able to find a very specific spot on every target to aim at. And I'm not saying we need to aim at like Ultron, slow fire, rounds touching groups. No, we still want to shoot aggressively. We just want to have the precision of picking aiming spots on the targets.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk about this all day, so we could just go down a deep rabbit hole. But basically, go learn from Charlie. But there is a lot, and that's what's really cool is self-diagnose. I think, like you said, is figuring out that training plan for yourself to like wrap it up in a pretty bow, and then make sure being intentional about dry fire and live fire. I think that's huge.
Absolutely. Like I usually ask my students, like, okay, tell me your dry fire things. And if people are like, yeah, I dry fire an hour a night, I'm like, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong.
First of all,
like, I've been doing this thing for like 13, 14 years now. I cannot grip the gun at the proper grip pressure for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Can't do it. And it's not because I'm not working out my grip.
Yep.
Right? It's because I'm actually gripping the gun with the proper amount of force. So if you're doing that stuff for an hour, you are not gripping the gun properly. Right?
Yeah. Sorry, I have to giggle. I've learned a lot, Charlie. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to talk about that I haven't remembered to ask you?
No, so the thing I did want to cover is I like the dedication, like the trend that I see from the start of when I started to now is the trend is we're getting the people coming into, and unfortunately we have a lot of turnover every year in competitors and participants. And it seems like the turnover, every time we get turnover, it's more and more consumerism, meaning the people coming into the sport, they pay their match fee, they want to show up and they shoot, and they don't want to do anything else.
Yep.
And as a match director, I'm like, okay, this person paid their match fee. They don't have to RO or tape or paste or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a volunteer sport, right? And the things that I really like that what you've done is you've really engaged in USPSA and the other practice shooting sports in your writing articles for USPSA, Front Sight magazine or whatever they're calling it now, right? Mm-hmm. You're engaging in these matches. You're making sure that people are participating and being part of it. And if we lose, like, the game is never going to be big enough that there's a McDonald's match.
Yeah.
Meaning you just show up, you pay for your combo number 5, and you're out.
Nope.
Like, it's never going to happen. There's not enough money. There's not enough participation. So that means that we play a game where volunteerism always needs to exist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So just like me, like, I'm a match director. I'm an RO.
Yep.
I'm CRO. I section coordinator. Like,
a lot.
There's like, I give back to the game I like to play. Yeah. And I'm not saying rah, me, everybody else sucks. To me, it's part of it. I can't participate unless I'm participating from a volunteerism perspective. And that's where I wish there was an easier way to communicate that to people. And I don't think that the newer shooters are doing that nefariously. I think they're just doing it like, I don't know, like, magically I show up at a match and people RO me and stuff gets done and I go home.
Yeah. And but then I also see the people that I get are paid to do it. They are there just to shoot and leave. They have the means to do it, right? The sponsors, the money to do it, and they don't ever give back. And so a couple things is that I started my journey in ROing. I did 0 RO. I did back-to-back nationals in Frostproof in Talladega now 3 times, 2-gun. Like, I've done everything. But where I'm at now, and I don't mean to be that way, is that I can give back I take a ton of photos for people. They're theirs. They're free. Like, have fun. I write the articles, and then I do the gals day, or I teach and I have people shoot my guns. Here's the ammo. Like, I want them in it. That's how I can contribute right now, at least. But that's where I even Bill Duda brings it up, like donating water. Can you donate tablets? Can you, what can you give if it's not your time that can help the club? And it's not always monetary stuff, right? But yes. participation, volunteer. What do you think of, real quick, because I'll start at Worm, what do you think of staff reset matches?
So it to me, I can see a product that people would want that, but I also think that like sometimes people don't realize how bored they would be at an event if all they did was shoot.
Area
Right?
6, 2 years ago, Riley, me, Jay Lee's, Justine, we were sitting for like 2 hours just waiting because the stage got so backed up, but it is very boring. And I can't sit. I am a participant. I like to reset. I run to paint. Like, I hate them. But I also hate it too because it's training us to just, they'll take care of it. They'll do it.
Yeah. It's training that consumerism.
Yeah. And like, I mean, again, this is public, so here we go with this. I'm sure I'll be blasted later. I've said it before, though, but like as a staff person who barely gets paid, who barely gets compensated, who's already there for 5 days, shooting staff and then working 3 days, I don't want to also reset for 500 to 800 shooters.
Yeah. So the solution, so the reality of it is that people want staff reset at the current match prices.
Yeah. And
those two things don't go together. Like if you were going to do a legit staff reset that was done properly in a very efficient manner, you're going to need twice the staff.
Yeah. And did you see
at least
went up from that because of that?
Yeah. Yeah. Like these are going to be $1,000 matches.
Yep.
So do you want to triple or quadruple your match fee because you want to sit down and yap instead of taping targets?
Yep.
I don't know about you guys, but like I'll tape some freaking targets.
And I can yip. Wow.
Exactly. Right?
I don't know. So that is something I want to bring up. I'm struggling with that. So that's controversial. Yeah. That's not the popular opinion, but
I mean, IPSC does it. IPSC does, staff reset matches, and they do it effectively. But then again, it's a different demographic of customer, right? Usually, overseas, the people shooting those matches, they are like legit rich people.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I mean, it's a different scenario. Like people are willing, like, okay, entry fee's $1,500. I don't care. Here's my money.
Yeah.
I don't want to tape targets.
And that's why you see participation from USPSA people into IPSC a little bit lower, a lot lower, let's say. Well, anything else on that note?
No, I think that the challenge, like the thing that I try to foster in my section as a section coordinator is the volunteerism thing is a difficult pill to swallow for each club because each club has to foster their team to run matches, and they have to foster it in a way that spreads the workload around, that it doesn't burn out the people.
Yep.
Right? Like you can't have a match where it's just 1 or 2 people doing the whole thing month after month after month after month. They're going to burn out.
Yep.
The quality of the product's going to go down, that kind of stuff. So I try to foster that behavior of surround yourself with a team, right? And as soon as you become the match director, that day you start training your replacements.
Yep.
Right? That doesn't happen very often. Like and unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but I've seen a lot of match directors basically go until they're so burned out that they just quit shooting altogether.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing the match direct thing anymore, and I'm taking up, basket weaving. I'm done with this thing. And I think that that's a tragedy. And as a section coordinator, I'm always reaching out to my clubs and saying, like, are you burning out? Like, how can I help you optimize your team so it's not a burnout scenario? And the other part about it is, like, I think that a lot of clubs, since it is a volunteer thing, they don't understand that they're producing a product.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're producing a product that you want people to buy.
Yep.
Right? That is a concept that is beyond a lot of people. They think, well, just because I'm volunteering, you get to eat this crappy product because it's a volunteer thing, and you're just lucky I'm doing it.
Right.
Right? Yep. Like that mindset is just super toxic.
Yep.
Right? And that in of itself makes it very difficult for those teams to build their team.
Yeah.
Right? Because like if somebody comes, like if a consumer, say consumer shooter says, hey man, I don't like this part of this stage. Maybe you could do it different next time. You hear, like, I really cringe when I hear well, if you want it different, you should submit a stage or you come and set it up. That's the wrong answer, right? It's not come do my job for me, right? It's okay, let me get some constructive criticism and let me try to do it different next time.
Yeah.
Right.
And would you like to help out as a side note? Like, hey, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say about that? Oh, my train of thought went poof. Am I gone? Oh. I mean, so like the team aspect is like if you had just 5 to 8 to 10, whatever it takes, depending on your area or section, whatever, people doing one tiny little job that moves a team astronomically in the right direction. I mean, I work with a nonprofit, I work with volunteers. It's team is everything. You cannot do it with 2. You can't do it with 3. You will be burnt out and you will never have a life outside of it too. So that's huge. The other stuff is, I don't understand. I'm going to tell everybody this a million times, I'm sure, is you need to learn the tablet. I don't care if you're a male or female or how old you are, learn the tablet. I don't understand what the taboo is with the tablet. Yeah, it's easy to score. It's easy to run the timer, but it's like, I don't understand. I don't understand. You know what I mean? That's so, those things are not being passed down because people aren't willing to learn them. There's that.
Well, I think it's because to me, that's a cultural behavior thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like all the local shooters that I shoot with regularly, they've seen me do this where shooters like, I don't know how to run a tablet. And I'm like, yay. Exactly.
And
You're learning today.
Yep.
You're learning today. It's going to take you one stage to figure this freaking thing out.
It's not
right?
hard. Yep.
It's not hard.
Yep.
Right. So to me, the excuses around, and it's really not excuses. Like, you got to understand people are like, oh, I don't want to screw up people's scores or, how
do you learn?
The thing that always blows my mind of like, oh, I can't see with my glasses. I can't see the tablet. And I'm like, wait a minute. You can pick up brass and pick up just your brass. You can see the freaking tablet, bud.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Culture is a thing. That is a thing. And I love those people that tell me, I don't know how cool today's the day. You're going to hate me and I don't care. So I love it. Well, Charlie, this has been fun. I know you mentioned your website, bigpenperformance.com, but on social media, I don't know if you want to tell people your handles and if you want to give a shout out to your sponsors while we have you on here.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, same thing, Big Panda Performance. So I'm super dynamic there, right?
No, branded.
Yeah.
I like it. Branded is a good thing.
So my sponsors, number one is my wife Dawn. If I didn't have her engagement and her willingness to entertain my craziness, like I wouldn't be where I'm at, right? So I shoot for Atlas Gunworks. They make great guns. I also shoot for Long's Shadow Holster. They make great Kydex holsters. And other than that, it's just my training business, Big Panda Performance, and that's my sponsors and myself, like my day job. That helps pay for stuff.
My credit card.
Yeah.
Love it. Charlie, this was a giggle fest. I enjoyed this.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. What's your plans for next year? Do you have kind of a semi-schedule laid out?
So I'm actually since this is my full-time open year, I'm actually gonna cut my major matches in half. Mm-hmm. So normally I would do 10 to 12 major matches a year. I'm gonna cut it back to 6. Okay. And then that's gonna give me more opportunity to do the dedicated practice that I need to get fully up to speed on shooting open. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
It's a different animal, but it's fun.
It's a ton of fun. Like I knew that this day was coming for a long time. I actually should have switched over to open like last year, but I've been shooting open at all the indoor matches that I participate in because it's just like impossible to see iron sights indoors in these dungeon ranges. Yep. So it's not like I'm totally new to it, but it's definitely like shooting a bunch of outdoor matches with open. I haven't done a ton of that, but it's going to be a fun experiment.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, listeners, tune in next week for an all-new episode of the Reticle Up Podcast. Thanks for listening, and go check out Big Pen Performance.
Thanks for listening to the Reticle Up Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow along on social media at Reticle Up or 3 Gun Kenzie.